and your scholarship and your identity, of who you are,
exactly.
whether, you're, it's hard to be the same person on the field and on the bench. And if someone changes that mode, it can be tough. So, did you ask any of the players about coach? I'm just curious because again, it's really the coaching level. This is, we're the big kids. I'm talking to people like me. We're the ones that are the gatekeepers, in a good or bad way, for those that we're serving. So, thoughts on what you've seen now that you've played internationally? Is there a different feel outside of the States?
Yeah, it's great. Like, I do think cultures in Europe are more open-minded, especially in Denmark, where I am. Like, everyone's very open-minded by it, and it doesn't bother them. And the girls I play with, like, they don't see me any differently, and they just see me as the person I am. And it's really great. And I'm not the only one on my team that's a part of the LGBT community. And so, like, all of our teammates are accepting of us, and like, we're accepting of them in their own cultures and backgrounds as well. So it's just not an issue. Like, it's just a part of who we are, and it's a part of like normal day-to-day lives. So for it to be an issue, it would just have, I don't know, it shouldn't be an issue in general, I don't think.
Yeah, because I'll tell you something really weird that happened to me when I was about 20 to 25 years old. When I was single, we had both male and female heterosexuals working together, and somehow everything was okay. Which is really the same thing you're talking about, which is we had two groups of people that may or may want to have a relationship with one another, and somehow we got business done. We could be friends. Some people would date. I know some that got married later. I know some that dated and ended horribly, decide not to do that again, and the rest of us, and others. So it happens. You can have people with a potential, physical connection working together. We've been doing it forever. So
exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
I agree with that.
And I was just thinking about that because I said, what's the parallel? And well, it's around us every day. Now, granted, there is all kinds of bad behavior, but that has nothing to do with the orientation. That's just bad behavior.
No. Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, and I don't recall, right now, I have nothing but young people working for me, and I don't break them up by gender because I'm worried about what's going on.
Exactly.
They act like adults and a team, and they get it done, and they hang out every day. Actually, they have lunch together. The six of them. They and also that group, I know at least half of them have had very good sports experience. Again, it's that whole team thing, which is why I just find that whenever you ruin that experience for anybody, any level, for any kind of bias, you're really just robbing them of growth that they need for later in life and how they get along with people.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's talk a little bit about Europe, though, because I think this is exciting in itself, your story. So when you were playing at your second school, again, you mentioned you ran into a definite roadblock there, and you ended up in Europe long before you graduated. So let's go to that, because this is upward and onward for real, and onto the bigger arena. Yeah.
What do you want to know?
Well, I guess, how did it start? One day you're in the States, and then sometime later you're in Denmark. How'd that happen?
So before I switched from my first university to my second, I met my mentor and business partner on LinkedIn, and he's a professional scout in England, and he said he would help me and mentor me and get me to where I want. And at that time, I needed any help I can get, because I was transferring and coaches doubted me and I guess mentally played with me. So I just needed that outlet. And me and him, or my mentor, Brian, we became really close really fast, and he helped me so much. So when I was at my second university, he was trying during that time to get me out of there based on my situation. and he found me the club, my first club in Denmark. And when they offered to pay me to play, that's when I knew like I wanted to try something new and a different experience. So that's when I up and left.
And you get there, you're across the ocean.
Yeah.
And you were on the West Coast before, so first you had to get to the East Coast, across the country, across the ocean. And what was that experience like, and what were the things that maybe unexpectedly prepared you for it? You know, the other things in your life, maybe.
It was just very exciting, first off, and already being away from home to go to my first university, and I'm already used to like living on my own, so that wasn't a big deal. I was just more nervous about the culture because I didn't know how the Danish culture was. But when I first got there, it was great. Like, everyone is super sweet and friendly and very welcoming. And with my first club, like, all of them were just so excited to have me. And it became like a really family-oriented environment. And like, we were all just super close and all really supportive of each other. And that's what I really admired the most, because I never experienced that on any of my university teams.
So that closeness, was it... I'm curious, what can you think of why it was? Whether it's just a different culture, or maybe it was a different level and there were fewer egos? What was it that you think just made it more family-like?
I think it was just more like culture, because, I mean, obviously everyone grows up differently. Like, you have very humble people in America, but then you also have very cocky people in America and entitled. But it's the same in Europe. Like, you have entitled girls or boys in Denmark, and then you have the very humble. But I think I was just lucky with the group of girls I got, especially when all of them were already close before I got there. So when I got there, everyone was just already was ready to just welcome me to the club. And I became really close friends with them really fast, especially since a lot of them were around my age already. So just having like similar lives and I guess like plans is really inspiring, because when you work with people with the same inspirations and dreams, then it's great and easy to work together to pursue those.
Yeah, and you talk about the team being close. I think in the culture, I mean, there's the international culture, country-wise, but a culture of a team with inclusion, that is a culture that you can't say, you know, you just don't make it a team goal, we're going to be close. It's it is something, but once it's there, it's really powerful. And I saw this happen just a few weeks ago on one of my high school daughter's clubs. They're still out there, a couple more girls looking to get recruited, but they're on a different squad, a different team within her organization. There was a girl that had been injured, so she missed the whole the early recruiting wave. So they wanted to get her in front of people. And so she was added to my daughter's team for that weekend, didn't know them. And the mom kept saying the whole time, like, I can't believe how well all the girls just took her in. Because between squads, you can imagine there's always some level of competition. But they said, well, that's what this team is. That's how they were. And the parents all followed suit, or vice versa. We've all been friends from the beginning. We didn't really care which of our kids started and which came off the bench, who made the pass and who made the shot. But I guess we forgot about what a great thing it is until someone had said, wow, that meant a lot, that we could just show, we know each other, but they don't hang out. And she showed up and they took her in immediately, like she had been on the team for 4 years. And I can only imagine how that felt for you, literally being away from home.
Yeah, it's really important to feel that, because if you feel really excluded, then you're not going to play or perform the best. And that's actually what I experienced with the second team I played for in Denmark. I didn't feel included at all, and it was just very, it just wasn't the best culture. And so that's one reason why I didn't want to stay with them. And being with the club now is really nice, because that's what that culture is all about, like equality and being inclusive with everyone and just kind of just being family.
Yeah, you feel lighter when it doesn't, whether it's sports or, you know, school, it doesn't matter what it is, whatever job you're doing. When you feel secure and included, you feel literally, I think, lighter and looser.
Yeah, you do.
And
it's just like all the stress is off you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's physically noticeable. And I think that's such a... people just say, wow, what's up with that? You know, it's almost like when a coach, maybe unknowingly, thinks they want to have a player prove themselves, see what they're made of. It's almost, they're almost condemning them to a bad ending, because once, you know, not everybody carries, you know, doubt, you know, inflicted upon them the same way. But it really can just make you play down to that person's worst expectations. And then what they were kind of challenging, they're going to get it. Not because that's what you have to offer, but that's, you know, we get what we put into people. If we want to push them down and not be receptive, you don't get anything out of them.
Yeah, exactly.
So now, also when you're in Europe, you've had a few other challenges with regards to visas and things like that. That you know are, and plus, you know, one time you and I were talking, you had mentioned how many back treatments you were going through because well, success breeds defense in sports and other things like that. But what are some other things this experience has, you know, really had to put you through, or I guess give you the opportunity to get through?
Well, I think just moving to a different country in general is just very challenging. But I knew, like, when I first got to Denmark, my goal was to play for a higher club, and then hopefully in the future I can play for one of the top clubs in Europe. But I think the biggest challenges have been from switching clubs and then moving across their country, and then kind of like, I guess, being stable. That has been a very hard thing for me, because my life is literally a movie where all these events happen and then you think it's over and then something else comes up. So with all of that, like, my life hasn't been as stable as I would like it. Recently it has with my new club, which is great. And I finally get to experience what it's like to, like, I guess, be steady for once, because my life was so rushed and so temporary. And with that, it can be really stressful. And I think with all of that happening, I've learned a lot about just being steady in the moment and just to, like, plan for the future, but not worry about it. Because if you work really hard in the present and you have, like, a plan for the future, then it can come naturally. Where if you worry about the future and don't care or don't work in the present, then your future won't come and more stress just builds. So I've learned a lot with that, especially with, like, going through the hardships of, like, competition and within, like, the soccer environments that I've been in. But yeah.
Well, and it's funny when you bring up that part about worrying too much about the future. It's the same with the past, that it's the same, whether it's school, business, or sports, it's the same thing. We look at what's coming up, what's the next challenge, and then we look back at how did we do before, which either puts us, you know, in a confident mode or a worry mode, and the same thing looking forward. But it doesn't matter how confident or worried you may be necessarily about those two things. If you get stuck in them, you're everywhere but the present, and that's the only place that things get done. And as obvious as that sounds, it took me a good 30 years to really, really understand that, because life does keep getting more complicated, where you have to keep looking forward, yet you can't forget about what you did. And it's tough to stay in the moment. So how does the team do? Is that something you deal with, or as a team do you help each other to stay in that moment with, you know, what you're trying to achieve?
It just depends on the challenge. Like, obviously there's, like, outside challenges where it's personal. I mean, there's some within the club, and every person takes each challenge differently. So I think that with all of that happening, you just have to stick together as a team and just, like, because your teammates are like your outlet to